Welcome to HB Reddit Stories. Today we will see stories of r/am I the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for a wedding portrait because my friend sexualized me in it? My friend is a painter, I have seen her work and it is beautiful. I asked if she was willing to paint a portrait on me and my husband in our wedding outfits. I thought it would be a good one-year anniversary gift. I have seen her work and she can do realist painting of people. She asked for a reference for this and I gave her a few pictures and gave a $300 deposit. In total we agreed on a total of $700. She showed me the painting yesterday. My husband looked great but I looked completely different. In short, she sexualized me and I find it so gross. The painting has me with huge boobs. I don't really have any, I'm an A-cup dude running. My wedding dress is showing much more skin. She even added a split to my dress to show off more leg. I don't look like that in any of my photos I gave her. I find it really gross. I told her I will not be paying her, that she needs to fix it or she can keep it. This caused a huge argument. She thinks I am a jerk for not paying and I pointing out the stuff above. It is going around with my friends, some think I am being petty and others are standing by me. Top comments. Your friend did not show you sketches or progress photos? That is a bit weird. OP replies. She just told me she was going off the one picture I gave her. I'd give her two choices if she wants to be paid. 1. Fix the weird sexualization crap on the bride part of the painting and match the reference photos given, or 2. Fix the groom side of the painting to also weirdly sexualize him, open shirt showing muscled chest, maybe enhance that bulge. I personally would find option 2 hilarious and would put that up on my game room wall. But not the a-hole. You've probably lost the $300 and the friend if this is their hill to die on. You are getting some interesting data on your other friends, too. Not the a-hole. Coming from someone who paints commissions from time to time, I always stick to the request of the client. Part of her job is listening to the client's response and adjusting her painting accordingly. It makes no sense for her to get paid for a job poorly done. This was not a favor from her, you are paying her to do a job which she did not do and is continuing to refuse to do. I'd take the deposit as a loss and stand your ground. Not the a-hole. As an artist myself, I check in about those kinds of modifications along the way, to make sure the client is happy with the progress. Deposits are usually non-refundable to cover time and materials, but the rest? Keep it unless she fixes it. She sounds like she got ahead of herself, making you look sexier in her eyes, which is in itself a whole thing. Make of that what you will, but giving her the benefit of the doubt, emphasizing beauty is part of what we do as artists, and is doubling down on her own vision as compared to yours. As a commission, that's not the way to go at all. Plus, her pride is damaging for your relationship. I hope she can put her ego aside to give you what you actually want. The only thing difficult about changing a painting is letting go of the attachment to what you've already created, which is a beautiful act of impermanence to actually do. Also, matching colors can be challenging, but there are ways of making it seamless. Not the a-hole. You asked for a realistic portrait and didn't get what you asked for. Deposit might not be refundable, but keep the remainder. Why would she do that? It makes no sense whatsoever to drastically change what you look like, especially in your wedding dress. Pay the rest with Monopoly money. If she asks, tell her that it's as much like real money as the painting is like you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking an old woman not to pick our lavender as she walks past our house? There's an old woman that walks by our house with her grandchildren. We don't have a fence between our plants and the pedestrian path. The woman picks our lavender and then encourages her grandchildren to pick the lavender too. I had enough today and I went out and said in a calm tone of voice, "Sorry, would you mind not pulling our lavender out?" She then said, "Are you serious? It doesn't harm the plant." I replied, "That's all well and good, but well, it's just disrespectful as it's our property." She then said, "Well, I have some advice for you. If you had cut it back last year, it would have grown better. You haven't done that and it hasn't grown well at all," and then made a cheeky smirk and walked on. I was sort of flummoxed at that reply and closed the door. I have social anxiety and don't like confrontation. I wish I said more. Makes me so angry that she feels she has the right to do that. She may be right in that it doesn't harm the plant, but it's just the principle of it. And I can't get over her rude reply about how we aren't growing it correctly. Can hardly focus on my work, I'm just pacing about with irritation. Edit, I'll add that it took a year and half of it happening a few times a week to get to the point where I said something. Top comments. Not the a-hole. My grandma had a yard full of beautiful plants. She had my granddad specifically choose a corner lot for the extra yard space. Loads of her plants were nearly 100 years old, passed down from her mother. Every dang year she'd get people trying to poach her lilacs or tea roses or irises. She also had a pawpaw in the side yard that she was more than happy to share the fruit of. It's good for about 5 minutes before it starts to rot, so when it comes in, you gotta harvest the whole tree and eat it fast, but she was not happy to go out there and find it picked bare without her permission. She tried signs. She tried talking. It never worked. So finally she gave up and just started hosing people down. She'd blast them with the hose, and when they'd freak out, she'd just spray them again. She said some people are just too thoughtless and rude to reason with, so you treat them like the pests they are. The next year, her yard went unmolested. Imagine that. Not the a-hole. If there are a lot of flowers and they are pushing to the sidewalk, yeah, whatever. Not something I'd do, but not the end of the world either, especially with a common, easily propagating flower. But if you get caught, you get caught. You don't smirk. You don't sass. You don't huff or bluster. You just apologize, wave, and say that your flowers are so pretty. And then you wave and say, no worries, and you go about living in a civilized society. Definitely not the a-hole. I live in a city and most of the row houses have small front gardens that border the sidewalk. Mine is a brick flower bed about 1.5 feet tall. It was a mess when I bought my house, but I cleaned it all out, planted hydrangeas and other things. Now a few years later, the hydrangeas are gorgeous and have grown together beautifully. People stop and take photos of them. Earlier in the summer, I found a lady on the sidewalk just clipping away my beautiful blooms. I said, "Ma'am, those are not yours, please stay out of my garden." She looked baffled. They're right here on the sidewalk. In an elevated bed, in front of my house, and what would be left if the hundreds of others who walk by each day all cut themselves a bouquet? My friend has an unique tree that is hard to grow in our zone. It has pretty flowers and every spring people come into their yard to pick them. Whenever she tells people to stop, they counter with, "It's just one flower." Her response is, "You're the 10th person today to pick just one flower, so please don't." Most people get it. Is she picking a sprig or pulling it out? If she is picking off just a bit to enjoy the scent, I would let it pass. It won't hurt the plant or destroy its beauty. And don't forget to cut it back. The best time to prune lavender is usually immediately after the plant stops flowering, usually in late summer to early fall. Don't prune lavender too late in the season, as plants pruned right before frost are most susceptible to cold damage. Opie replies. Thanks for the reply and advice regarding the pruning. I think it's the lack of respect for property and lack of apology when asked to stop that is frustrating me, rather than the specifics of the action. Next story. Am I the a-hole for returning the bag my husband bought me because I didn't want the rude sales assistant to get commission? I've never experienced a sales assistant being so rude to me before, so maybe I overreacted here, but last week I was looking for a birthday gift. There was only one free sales assistant and I could tell she didn't want me to approach her as she was intentionally avoiding eye contact and walking away when I was close. I waited 10 minutes in the hopes that another sales assistant would be free, but they weren't and it was getting late, so I approached the original sales assistant. She pretty much brushed me off without helping me, so I went back to browsing on my own as my husband was going to meet me there. When my husband arrived, her entire demeanor changed and she suddenly wanted to do her job. I was looking at a bag that I would have bought for myself if it wasn't for the rude sales assistant. My husband asked me if I wanted to get it, but I said no, as the rude sales assistant would have been the one to benefit from the commission, as by this point she had come over and was offering to help us. A few days later my husband surprised me with the exact same bag. I asked him if he got it from the same place and if it was the same sales assistant who had helped him. It was, so I told him I wanted to return it. He knows she was rude and dismissive when I tried to ask her for help, but he still didn't want me to return the bag as he said I would be missing out because of a random stranger. To him the commission isn't a big deal, but I don't think she should benefit after how rude she was. If he had bought the bag with a different sales assistant I would have kept it, but since he didn't, I returned it. Now he's upset because I returned his gift. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. No a-hole here. I don't think your husband is an a-hole for not getting why you are annoyed and want to return. He in theory did something nice, he got you a bag you wanted. But I don't think you are an a-hole for wanting to return it. Because even if you previously wanted the bag you don't now. To me it wouldn't just be about the commission, though that would be part of it, but after having a horrible interaction with the sales associate the whole bag would be tainted. I wouldn't be able to look at it without thinking of the interaction and the stress it caused me and feeling a little bit sad or annoyed, especially when I knew she got the commission. Your husband wanted to get you a lovely gift. Unfortunately that bag from that person is no longer a lovely gift, but he wasn't to know, so I feel like neither of you are a-holes. Not the a-hole. I would go back to the establishment. Find a different sales associate and return the bag. Then immediately buy the bag from the new sales associate. Old associate loses a commission and new friendly associate gets a commission. You have the bag you want and petty revenge. Everyone is a winner except the rude associate. NTA, I would have done the same thing on principle. My husband knows me very well, and had we experienced this together, like you did, he would have gone back and made sure it was a different salesperson. I myself worked in retail for many years as a sales clerk and as a store manager. That behavior is unacceptable and one of the reasons many folks dislike shopping in store rather than online. I went into a store with my sister in 2019, who is larger, and she was at the front of the store looking at dresses. I was in the back of the store, where I listened to the two salespeople disparage my sister for being fat and saying that she shouldn't be in the store. I placed my items on the counter, told them they were disgusting, and then walked out with my sister, so they could see I was with her. I also gave them a terrible online review for fat shaming and have never spent a penny there since on principle. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to inherit the family farm and giving it to my younger brother instead? I, 36M, grew up on a big farm that was owned by my family, who worked as farmers for generations. Much to the detriment of my parents, I hated the farm life from a very young age. I never liked dirt or grime, and farm animals were also never my thing. So to no one's surprise I left the farm when I turned 18 and never looked back. I currently live in a big city. I still love my family very much and visit the farm from time to time, but I'm always the happiest when I return to my urban lifestyle. My mother passed away 3 years ago, and 2 months ago I unexpectedly lost my father due to a work accident. This left my younger brother Tom, 30M, and I, as the sole beneficiaries of their estate. I didn't expect to be left with much, since my folks helped me out financially more than enough times while they were still alive. I honestly only wanted a couple of family trinkets and heirlooms to keep as a keepsake. But to my surprise, as my brother and I sat down with the attorney to discuss our father's will, we discovered that I was left with the majority of the farm, about 3/4, while Tom was left with the rest. The only reason I can fathom behind this decision is that unlike Tom I have 2 children, 10M, and 7F, so maybe that's why I was given the bigger share. But I'm not entirely sure since my children had their own inheritance in the will. Either way, this split of inheritance was ridiculous, since unlike myself Tom actually lived on the farm and dedicated his entire life to working on it alongside our parents. I saw that Tom was also shaken up by the decision, so I reassured him that I found it absurd as well and I don't mind forfeiting the land to him. Tom said I didn't have to do that, but I insisted. After some back and forth on the topic, we mutually agreed to settle this between ourselves on a later date, when everything would be transferred under our names as our parents intended. I recently informed my wife Jules, 35F, of my decision regarding my inheritance and she is furious with me for wanting to give most of it up. She is arguing that my decision is impulsive and short-sighted, since the farmland is worth a fortune and I'm just giving it away without a second thought. I told her that the land is worth a fortune only for those who actually intend on doing something with it, and since I neither intend to sell it or farm on it, it's effectively useless to me. Jules continued to say that it might be useless to me, but I should think about our children who might one day want to start farming. I told her in that case I'll transfer only half of the land to Tom, So our children could have a 1/4 of the land at their disposal in the hypothetical scenario they get into farming one day. Jules is now not speaking with me until I reconsider my decision. I need to hear some unbiased opinions to see if I'm in the wrong here. Top comments. Not the a-hole, I may be way off, but it sounds like your wife saw a load of money slip from her fingers and she's angry rather than seeing the situation for what it is. You wanted nothing to do with the farm, but your brother has been there his whole life taking care of it. The split at the very least should have been 50-50ths. I think the scenario your wife gave of your children growing up and wanting to start farming is a stretch. You live in the city, they are growing up around urban lifestyle. I don't know your kids, but I don't think they're eager to start living that farm life. If she's that worried, keep 1/4 like you mentioned. Not the a-hole, it's your inheritance, not Jules. You should do what you feel is right, and while she's free to have an opinion on the topic, she's an a-hole. She's also full of crap about the farming. She just wants the money. Deed it to your brother, with the stipulation if he sells the land you get half. That's what we did. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my bully, you're not even half as beautiful as your friend? This girl, Clara, 18F, has been bullying me, 18M, ever since she saw me using my dad's old iPhone 5. At first she just called me poor, but she has since progressed to calling me ugly. Eventually I had enough. One day when she was calling me ugly again and her best friend, 18F, Kate, was standing next to her, I told Clara, you're not even half as beautiful as your friend, and you call me ugly. I made that comparison because objectively speaking she's beautiful. Calling her ugly wouldn't have worked. It would bounce off of her. But comparing her to her friend did work. She glared at me. Kate giggled and then Clara glared at and told her to shut up. My friend said it was underhanded and I shouldn't aggravate her and escalate things. Top comments. Not the a-hole, it's actually the perfect thrust. You are being bullied with words, you have the right to defend yourself with words. The fact is, the ugliest one in a group will always have inferiority issues with the cutest one in the group. You hit on the one thing that probably bugs this girl the most. Bravo! If she comes at you again, tell her the only reason her group keeps her around is because they all look better by comparison. That ought to really hit home. Then if she says anything, tell her that's how it feels when you bully me for nothing. Don't start mess, won't be mess. LOL, genius. You probably just broke up a friendship too. Not the a-hole. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share and subscribe the channel HB Reddit Stories.